there is a certain trick I use to avoid using classes in a specific situation that happens quite often. Let me show you. For example, you have a hotkey, Shift-Alt-N, that sets a variable to be something. Maybe you have an input box that you type something in to make that variable that. But let's say it's a now, for simplicity's sake. And then you have a hotkey that does something with that variable. Say it displays it in an info, which I showed you recently. Well, the thing is, this won't work because this is local scope, and outside of this scope, this variable doesn't exist. And we can't use it because, once again, it doesn't exist. So what people usually tend to do, unfortunately, is using global variables. So first you define it as nothing, then to be able to change a global variable, you first have to declare it. And that's how you usually do it, but please don't. I hope that not a single person will take this advice. Please don't. Global variables are horrible because you have to come up with naming for every single one of them, and it becomes a clusterfuck. That's very hard to maintain and to use, because at one point you won't know where that global variable is. So there's a better solution. We can create a function that deals with the scope issue. Let's call it info holder. I guess so, yeah. Expression, I like that. First I'll make it and then I'll explain how it works. So if is set expression, then variable is expression, return expression, false, static var is false. Okay, so how does this work? If we pass anything into this function, then this variable becomes whatever we passed. But if we don't, the previous value that used to be that, by the way, not expression, but variable, boom, then the previous thing that we set gets returned. Okay. So now we do info holder now. Nice, that works. And this is info holder with brackets and nothing besides that. So with Shift-Alt-N, we pass the new value of this variable, and then by passing nothing, not a comma, not an empty string, not a zero, nothing, it just returns that. So let's test this out. Boom, script is running. I press Shift-Alt-N, well, nothing is happening, but actually is. Shift-Alt-M, boom. Okay. So it stays for longer. Let's make it an infos. Multiple, meaning it stays. Okay, let's do it again. I press Shift-Alt-N again, and Shift-Alt-M again. This is quite nice, I think. Now we have dealt with the scope issue without needing to use global variables. Now you might say this is quite more code compared to a global variable, and it's not much better. And honestly, I don't have an argument against that. Maybe I'm just biased, but I just think global variables are bad. I would like to be challenged on this. I would like to hear why this might be worse than just using a global variable. I don't think it is. I think it's better. But I don't have a good enough reason for why. So I would like to hear your opinion on this. Surely, a lot of people might have not known about this operator. I'm going to explain it just in a second. So, even if not for this specific situation, this can be really, really useful. What this question mark operator does, it essentially allows a variable to be passed while being unset. Let me rephrase that. We can either set that variable or not, and there will be no error. Now, at first, you could just say, well, this can work, and instead of if is set, we just have if not expression. Well, there is one bad thing about that. First of all, what if we want to pass 0 or an empty string? That is something that we might need to do with just specifying, predetermining the parameter as false. We can't do that anymore because both 0 and an empty string will be considered false. Yet, if we use this thing, allowing the parameter to be unset, now we can make use of if is set. So there's already a positive to this. But an even bigger positive is the fact that, say we call some other function, there's parameter A, parameter B, parameter C, and we're not, we don't know whether or not there will be the expression parameter. Say in the func function, it can also be unset. If we preset this parameter at the topmost level, then when we pass, or rather when we don't pass anything, it becomes that predetermined value, and it gets passed into this function. And then, even if there is a preset value in that function, it will be overwritten, which can mess up a lot of things. In my win library, I make use of this quite a lot. So there's win activate and win run. Win run is the lowest level. As you can see, there's a lot of bullshit which should really be refactored, but it's going to be good for the explanation. So every possible unset parameter is resolved at this lowest level. Then we have a higher level, run act, in which I can also set those parameters. And then we have WinApp, which uses runAct, in which I also can set those parameters. But let's say if WinApp just had like run option preset to some value, it would overrun anything that would be at a lower level. Not the greatest explanation, but this is better for that reason. If you nest function calls, which often you might, overruling what the default is on the highest level could be quite annoying. So that's the use, and that's why I really like this operator. That's one of them. Oh, and well, while I'm at it, to explain this, basically means if this variable is unset, then make it be this. As simple as that. Those two were introduced in beta 7, so now some time ago, and I love them. I hope this explanation is good enough. It's probably a good idea to record a whole video where I explain them more precisely. Okay, thank you for watching this video, and goodbye.